Boatbuilding News, the podcast. Let's do it. Welcome to Boatbuilding News, the podcast, a series of engaging interviews with key individuals from within the marine industry. I'm excited. This is going to be epic. What a brilliant conversation I had with Charlie Hall about the contribution himself and his team at Pixii play in providing the marine industry with exciting electric propulsion boats. He really is selling the electric dream. Hi, Charlie. Thank you for joining us. For anyone that sort of went to Southampton Boat Show, they will probably know that yourself and the Pixii boat was an absolute standout. It looked incredible.
Well, thank you.
First of all, congratulations on that. And thank you for giving us your time this morning.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. That's a nice way to start. Cheers.
It is. No, it's well deserved. I was at the boat show for a good I think it was 5 full days in the end. And I walked past your boat every day. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, thank you. Well, we have had lots of lovely compliments about it, because that was one of the things that we were going for, is to have a good looking boat that catches your eye. Then obviously all the other credentials of it being fully electric is pretty important. But yeah, you got to love it with your heart first and with your eyes, and then everything else sort of falls into place. It's hard to sell a ugly duckling, I guess.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so true. So let's start with the basics. Introduce yourself. Tell
Sure.
us who you are and tell us a little bit about Pixii.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Charlie Hall. I'm CEO of Pixii. Pixii is a electric boat builder. We have a good knowledge about battery technology through the 3 founders, which I'll introduce properly in a sec. So we've taken that battery know-how and we wanted to design from the ground up a new type of boat, as in the look and its performance. We're using aluminium as our material of choice. There's very little waste in making the boat. It performs very well whilst it's being used, and then can be fully recycled at the end of its life. So yeah, the material was really important. But yeah, what about Pixii? So Pixii is a luxury boat brand. We're sort of interested in talking with and working with people who have got a penchant for guilt-free boat enjoyment. So whether it's sort of day cruising during along the coast, or if it's as a super yacht tender, that's what the sort of this Pixii boat here is sort of been designed for. That's the first model, which is the Pixii SP800, and that's the one that you saw at the boat show. We're developing a slightly smaller one, which is going to be called the Pixii 6. It's going to have half the battery power that the current one has. So this one here has got a 150 kilowatts of battery, and the next one will have 75 kilowatts. So it's going to be a bit more chilled out, a bit more of a day cruiser rather than a sports day tender.
Leisure.
So that's what we're kicking off with this Pixii brand.
Awesome. So it's actually quite interesting that I know that obviously, your focus is on electric propulsion.
Sure.
And being sustainable in that way. But it's interesting to hear that actually quite a large chunk of your focus was what happens at the end of a boat's life as well.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's such a growing problem at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the sort of elephant in the room. I had worked extensively with composites in my previous career in the events industry. And I know firsthand how much effort it takes to make a composite boat in the first place, and how much actually lands up in landfill.
Yes.
And then using it, the material itself, fantastic, creating these amazing shapes, extreme strengths, great durability for the most part, subject to how well these boats are maintained. But yeah, the end of life. I know there's a couple of chaps around who are actually going into the actual mechanics of recycling boat hulls, and they're not having as easy as time as you would think. They're coming up with a perfect solution to recycle boats, but they're getting a bit of a uphill challenge with getting alliances from major boat builders, because their problem is they can't be associated their boats with being a problem at the end of their lives. So it's a
that's so
really,
true.
really it's a horrible sticking point. It's sort of like a bit of putting their fingers in the ears. It's like, well, it's not a problem right now. We won't associate with you guys.
Well, I
And
suppose they don't want to pick out reasons why somebody wouldn't buy their product, do they? Really?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's actually the solution for their product. So it's a bit of I think it's a bit of good marketing and spinning some ideas and turning them on their head a little bit. I think that could change some minds. The worst thing
Mm.
for them, I think, these major boat builders is when it does hit the fan, and they don't have a solution, and they haven't been helping trying to figure out how to get these boats sorted out. I mean, it's not just the major big boat builders. There are lots of tiny little boats that are clogging up a variety of rivers, estuaries, marinas that are just
Yeah.
gathering seaweed, gathering bird mark, everything like that. Councils have to try and, or marinas have to get rid of them at some point, and they end up in,
Yes.
in landfill, which is a bit of a tragedy.
Well, I mean, I see so many reports. I see so many reports with statistics. When I'm doing the research for the boat building news and things, I've come across them over the last year or 6 months, maybe at least 2 or 3 reports where somebody's saying, "This is the problem. This is the amount of boats that there's no solution to be recycled." But nobody ever says this is what we need to do about it. We're just
Yeah,
kind of just report and commenting on the problem, but not actually giving any solution.
yeah, and exactly. I mean, I was at this. It's called the Clean Maritime Demonstration Competition round 3. It's a Innovate UK funding thing, and one of the guys there, James. God, I should really have got his name sorted in this company, because this would have been a perfect promotion for him. Um, he's got the solution. They know how to
Really?
blast out the resins out of the glass or the carbon
Yeah.
fiber. They can separate it all. They can make all those products. I believe he's doing some
Oh,
work,
wow.
or will be working with Scott Barder to do an analysis of the materials that are removed, and then see how viable they are to be reused as a
Oh,
building
wow.
material. So it's all there. It just needs to have a bit more uh, reality check,
Promotion
a
almost, doesn't
promotion,
it?
and like someone owning the
Yeah.
problem. That's what this guy James is doing. He's owning the problem. He's finding solutions, but he's just coming up against massive locked doors and
Yeah.
and fingers in the ears, because the
We don't want to hear it, do we?
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not our business model. We don't need to care about
No.
that, but we need to sell it, and we will maintain it. Whilst it's being used, and if it's coming to the end of its life, no, nothing to do with us. We don't care.
Well, it makes people feel uncomfortable, doesn't
Yeah,
it? But it needs to be like an industry-wide like collaboration. It's not just up to the big boat builders or the big
yeah,
names. It's
yeah,
an industry-wide. Everyone needs to
yeah,
come together and really say this is a problem for all of us.
yeah. And if James has got the solution, empower him to fix all of that problem. That's what I find is a bit sort of backward. But so yeah,
Yeah.
there's that bit. But when we've designed our boat, we sort of looked at the materials that we can choose, and we went with aluminium. There's an amount of energy that is taken to get the aluminium out of the ground, refine it, turn it into an aluminium sheet. But we're using they're called it's hydro aluminium, so it's recycled aluminium
Oh,
for
okay.
marine grade applications. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
already previous. So it's already had a life. It's a second life
Yeah.
aluminium. It gets turned into our hull, so it comes as like an air fix type kit. It's laser cut,
Okay.
gets shaped into the shape of the hull that needs to be welded together. All of the offcuts are valuable because they can be recycled into something else. They're not thrown away. It's too valuable as a material. And then then the boat cracks on. Gets used. You see a lot of aluminium is Once again, it's a little bit of education. Aluminium is typically used as a workboat material because it's rugged, it's very low maintenance, um, and it does the job it needs to do. It doesn't easily break, or if it breaks, you can re-weld it. Well, similar to what happens with composite boats. Yes, you can relaminate. So yeah, I guess it doesn't have the higher ground on that. But yeah, so it's just raising the status of what an aluminium boat is and what it means for an owner.
But I mean, if a small business like yourself can put that much thought into it, and can actually put thought into the materials they're using from an energy and a waste point of view, it's totally possible for any size company to put that thought in at the beginning of the process, isn't it?
I think so.
That.
Yeah, new boat builds. The problem is it's these bigger and even smaller boat builders. If you got your skill set in composites, you've got molds that are made out of composites, you've got all of your setup ready for making composites, to change course and to either reskill or all that stuff. It's just it's a hard thing to do. And if you're sort of, trying to keep shareholders happy and bottom line and everything, it's once again, it's like, well, until some sort of legislation comes in and says, look, you're going to get fined for doing that or making this waste, then I'm sure the appropriate action will be taken. But until then, it's not really but yeah, changing course is so hard. Yeah.
It's inevitable, that they will. It's a bit like buying a car now. 10 years ago, people didn't even probably consider electric, whereas now, that everyone will be driving electric by law. So we've had to make that shift, and it will be the same. At some point, the hand will be forced, and I think if it was me and my business model, I'd rather make that decision myself and start putting the preparations in place and have my hand forced later down the date.
Yeah, and then you hopefully attract the best and the brightest and the people who have had the similar sort of thinking process about it, and the early adopters or the early enablers, with their professional skills to be able to apply that into a business model. Yeah, I mean, I hope there's some good that comes from it. There is a hell of a lot of sort of whitewashing, unfortunately, as well, or greenwashing with
greenwashing. I was going to say,
sorry, I got the wrong one there. Greenwashing with these composites. They're flax. They can be recycled. Yes, you can burn. So at the end of a life, you can burn the boat and you can get the carbon. You can take the energy from burning the boat, and that offsets the carbon. It's just like, what? I don't understand. It's just sort of like justification of a bad habit.
Well, who are they trying to justify it to? Themselves?
Well, themselves and the next. I mean? Yeah, it's exactly. They're selling it. So the ethically minded boat owner will say, well, what's this made out of? Or there is you have to have a environmental stance, a positive environmental stance, and this is sort of the way that they justify to themselves to carry on with what they're doing. But it's obviously extremely tricky and difficult and probably hard to hear that there has to be a big shift. I don't think that aluminium is the only solution. I think there's steel as well. There's other wood, that good old fashioned bit of, I mean, wood obviously needs a bit of resin and things like that to make it work. But yeah, it's just asking the question. I think we this is our iteration of what an answer could be. We'll find out whether we're right or wrong in the next 10 or so years, but
exactly that.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to people about Pixii and your boats, what consumers are you seeing? So it's the ethical the ethical boater who wants to enjoy, you say, sort of guilt-free time on the water, and sustainability, and that is at the forefront of their mind over possibly performance and that kind of thing, and price maybe.
Absolutely. So it's the early adopters. These are the guys and girls that have already bought an electric car. They've got solar panels all over their roof. They get it. They understand it. The idea of how you use your car and or boat has been the mindset has been changed. As in, they understand that for example, with a car, if you're doing a very long journey, yes, you get your superchargers in place on your trip. You're having a nice lunch. You take a bit longer than you would on a normal lunch, but you're emailing. You're doing whatever you need to do to facilitate that journey. And it's the same thing with boats. With an electric boat, that is, being able to use the boat as you would day on day is the exact same usage. When it comes to the end of the day, you don't have a 3/4 of a tank full of petrol or diesel. You have to charge it up. Whatever you're coming back from a nice day out, you're going to have about 20, maybe 10% of charge left in your boat, because you're always going to have a little bit left. That's a recharge of between 7 to at most 14 hours, depending on the type of charging setup they have at whatever marina they go to, because we're able to charge our boats from a 3-pin plug to a 16 amp to a 32 amp to a 75 kilowatt supercharge. So any type of electricity can be put into the boat. So it's people who go, well, yeah, I've earned my money, I've done my thing, and now I want to have something that doesn't give me any grief. I mean, sure, you're going to have to keep it nice and shiny, keeping the muck off, but it's like there's 90% less maintenance. So there's 2 moving parts on our boats. Well, not including the steering wheel and the throttles, but mechanical moving parts on the boats. There's no hydraulics to leak. There's no oil to mess around with. It's just plug and play. It's literally like that. You plug it in and then you play. It's pure fun. Yeah, the performance, sure. I mean, yes, you're not going to be going 20 knots for 100 nautical miles. You're doing 20 knots for 3 hours, so 60 nautical miles. That's still a fair old whack. That's still a fair old distance. And how often I mean, I'm sure there's extreme boat users that, yes, I'm going to go 100 nautical miles. But that's not how boats are actually used. They're typically going, day on day, about 18 nautical miles a day. Maybe in just one direction or looping back. That seems to be the average use. Maybe getting on to maybe 20, 25 on some days and sometimes less. But they are an enjoyable plaything, whether you're fishing or going to a nice restaurant or going wakeboarding, whatever. All of that can be done with electric propulsion now. And so it's not just us as Pixii as the be-all and end-all electric boat. There are lots of other electric boat brands coming out, and it's one thing. There's something really nice is that it seems to be a lot of not so much collaboration, but everyone's supporting each other in the sector, because we're all going to the same place. We're all getting to the same sort of destiny of a combustion-free future.
I mean, the electric boat builders, you all have that same mindset, haven't you? You've all got that one vision, that one sustainability goal in mind. So you've got that sort of common interest, which I suppose you wouldn't have had before, because, you'd have all had a different goal in mind. Whereas now, there is that common ground between you all, isn't there? And you're all offering something different to the market. Your products, even if you just look aesthetically, that there are some people would prefer yours and some would prefer a competitor.
Yeah.
But you've still got that common interest, haven't you, and that common goal that you're striving towards.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and that's been really nice. At the Southampton Boat Show, I was sort of going around and picking up and talking to the guys, because they've been sharing the same sort of challenges as well. There's a lot of education. Yes. I mean, 95% of the people at the boat show were just wanting to be a little bit educated into why this is a good idea or how on earth this works. I had a few guys coming along saying, this is the worst idea I've ever seen. Put a diesel engine in there, I'll buy one right away. I said, that's not really the point. I think he was being very flippant and maybe had a few beers, but it's quite an interesting thing, because, there's still a mindset of like, they literally do not think this is a possibility, that this is going to work.
But it's not necessarily the concept of electric they don't like. Probably more the concept of change. Some people, change makes people feel uncomfortable, doesn't it? And they feel exposed, they feel unsafe, and they almost feel that instead of an industry evolving, that the industry as they know it is changing and is being told it's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just natural evolution, isn't it? And there's always it's human nature. There's resistance to that from the minority usually, isn't it?
Yeah, resistance to change because the status quo is the status quo because it's been so good so far.
Well, people only know what they know as well.
Yeah.
Do you know, people, especially if, I mean, can I say it? The older generation who only know what they know, and they've only known what they've known for a long time. It's ingrained in them, and that, to change somebody that's only known it one way, it's hard. It's a battle, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we do have a lot of some other conversations that will come up. Is what happens if you run out of charge when you're out at sea. It's like, well, it's exactly the same thing as if you run out of petrol at sea. You make sure that you don't. You have to be a little bit more responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even when you're driving in your car. I mean, I guess in a car, if you stop, you're like, oh, I'll call someone up. Well, that's exactly what you do at sea as well. Unfortunately, it's just the Coast Guard or
it's not as convenient.
No, well, and also there is a hint of danger and things like that. But yeah, it's like you just work around it. We've been dancing around working with Savvy Navi. We need to get a bit more traction together. I think we're both doing quite a lot. So Savvy Navi is a navigation app. It was primarily made for sailing boats, and that actually works really well with electric boats because you're a bit more susceptible to the tide and wind because those are quite critical when you're planning routes. So one of the things that we've been working on is rather than saying that the range of where you're going is 20 miles from a central point, it's actually more elliptical because at least on the south coast here, you're dealing with tide and wind. So if you're starting and the wind and tide is pushing you, then if you're starting over this side, you've actually got a lot more range that you can do over a 6-hour period. And then conversely, going back, you've got it going the other way for the tide, that is. And so being able to have that empowered into your screen, exactly what ranges you've got, what's likely to happen. You're also getting downloads of the updated wind and if it's going to rain and things like that. So you can plan your day really appropriately and know you're going to get back home. We've also got a little setting in the boat. So when you get down to, let's say, 10%, the batteries and the motors dial right down so that you can only do displacement speeds. So you're doing 6 knots or so. So you're getting at least 10 to 15 miles of limp home mode. And
limp home,
and so in the unlikely event that you've gone, well, maybe you're going across the English Channel in the boat, but typically you're not going out more than 12 miles out to sea.
Well, you'd hope you were on your way back.
Yeah, exactly. But you're getting a very, pertinent reminder. Okay, this is what I've got now to get back home, or back to the marina. Oh, it could be home, could be a home jetty. That's the boat sort of looks after itself. So we've got lots of preventative things to make sure that there isn't we're not headline news. That seems to be the thing. Anything that's to do with electrical is headline news, and oh my god, this is the most terrible thing that could possibly happen. Whereas you see, like cars and petrol tanks and stuff exploding and catching fire the whole time. But if it happens with an electric system, it's
electric boat runs out of power.
Yeah,
it's horrendous.
Yeah. That's it's good sort of headline news stuff. It attracts attention or confirms a bias that But anyway, so fun.
So I mean, the branding, the name, the name is playful.
Yeah.
It's different. Tell me about how you came to the decision to call it Pixii.
Well, we had gone I should have introduced these guys ages ago. Daniel Simpson and Paul Luscombe are the co-founders with myself. they're the sort of brains behind it. They know all the electrical engineering and technology and how to make things work.
That's always handy.
Yeah. Well, that's when you start an electric boat brand. That's sort of quite integral. So so when we were thinking about what are we going to do and how we're going to do it, we actually have a few other brands and brand names that I'll get to in a second. But we're looking at all the sort of the best names we thought we could get and looked at trademarking, and they'd already been snapped up. So obviously the Teslas, Edison stuff, Faraday's, electric boats, pure zero craft, zero jet. So all of the good names has already started being gobbled up.
Although you say good, they're quite usual, aren't they? For they're quite expected for an electric brand.
Yeah, it's a hard one because yes, with Pixii, we do need to say something next, electric boats, rather than electric yachts or whatever. It's quite descriptive. Maybe not as endearing, but you don't need to say more when you're trying to describe the brand. So yeah, Pixii. Daniel actually brought up the idea. So there was a French inventor called Hippolyte Pixii, and Hippolyte is a French name that used to be very popular. It's quite eccentric, but Hippolyte Pixii in 1836, I think it was, he made the first hand cranked electric generation machine. So creating the first sort of electric generator, and he was a protege of Michael Faraday. So it's all part of that same sort of group and club. And something's caught our eye with the name Pixii. It seemed to be playful. It has lots of different connotations to the same word, whether it be a sort of a sprite from Cornwall, getting into mischievous type scenarios and whatever. And obviously a nod to the past of the electric sort of first electric revolution happening in the 1830s, 1840s. But then I do have another part, which is a family thing. Is that unfortunately I never met him, but my grandfather was running a company called Picii Aviation. That was his half brother's surname, Fairy. And so Picii Aviation and Picii Marine have been sort of, and certainly the marine side have been a long-standing sort of proud thing. Although I had nothing to do with it, I'm only the grandson of the guy, but I had nothing to do with it. But I was always very impassioned with what they got up to, what they did, what they designed, and got up to. And so I thought the Pixies and Fairies for me really got my heartstrings and really like, let's make this happen. And amazing,
right, did it?
Yeah, and amazingly, at the Southampton Boat Show this year just passed, there's a chap called Mark, and he has just sort of, as a phoenix raised from the ashes, the Picii Marine name. So I think he bought it 2 or 3 years ago. He had been restoring Picii boats for the last 30 odd years, the Huntresses and Swordsmen and all these amazing boats. And now he's sort of having his take, so having a real good nod to the past and the wooden boats and the sort of luxurious design. The boat that he had at the show looked very much like a Riva. Is it Riva? I can't. I'm going to probably say it wrong, but anyway, a very nice Italian boat. And I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely amazing. So I hope at some point, the Pixies and Fairies get together and make a lovely, beautiful electric boat.
I could see it. Yeah, I was going to say I see a collaboration.
Yeah, I hope so. It's something. We've got our stuff to do. He's got his stuff to do. But I hope, I'm sure our paths will cross again.
But that.
It's fun. It's really fun, and it's it's obviously very. It gives me a lot of pride to actually bring this whole thing to life as well. It seems to work. It seems to have resonate with people, and it's almost like an endearing thing. Especially the UK, having their own new electric boat brand and having it something a bit cuter. It doesn't need to be like that was the other thing. We were looking at like naming it Vanquish and Valkyrie and all the other,
I don't know if that fits.
exactly.
Really.
It doesn't.
It needs to be something a bit more nimble
Nimble,
and a bit
playful,
quieter.
interesting. It's there. It's not. It's sort of glamorous. It's That's sort of where we wanted to pitch the brand, and it seems that the name Pixie fits that, and it's fun. It's definitely been a fun process.
Awesome. So are there any challenges that, I mean, I know that when you go into doing something brand new and you're a startup company, there are obviously some challenges that you predict and obviously some natural challenges that are obvious that everyone faces. But have there been any unexpected ones where you thought, well, I didn't foresee that?
COVID. That was a
Of
good.
course, yeah.
That was a good one.
Don't think anyone saw that one
No,
coming.
and then obviously everybody in the marine sector and most all sectors, I think, had a huge logistics problem. The Suez Canal being blocked, that was an interesting time of getting things sort of delivered.
Oh, of course, yes, I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah, so that sort of led to a whole load of ramifications and stuff being stuck in places and months behind, if not couple of months behind things when they should have been delivered. The Ukraine war, that was interesting. We really wanted. So one of the things that we're doing is our boats are all aluminium, as I mentioned. We wanted to use aluminium welding machines to make these boats, and there was a company in Germany who did just that. And because of the war in Ukraine and getting their finances sorted and logistical problems with aluminium, we weren't able to work with them, which was a really, really great shame. I'm actually just trying to talk to them again to see what we can raise out of the ashes with those guys. But yeah, so that's these little things that you go, right, this is our theory. In theory, it's a great idea. Reality is variables are just far too extreme to even contemplate that something like a war, Ukraine's Russia war, the financial problems from that spilling out, that all the inflationary things that are going on right now. There's just so many things. I think
I suppose you have to just be prepared for things out of your control.
Yeah.
Variables that you can't foresee or control, just knocking you off path, but you just have to either find yourself a new path that takes you to the same destination, or find a way to get back onto the path.
Exactly. It's just being okay with delays and not being angry with them. Yes, if there is an ability to reduce a delay, absolutely fantastic. Let's go for it. But most part, it's just sort of suck it up and concentrate on the next thing you can. So yeah, that's that bit. There is there's not many, there's not proper, or it's not tightly regulated yet with regard to the use of electrical power for propulsion, and we're working with the MCA and making sure that obviously the hull conforms to the RDC. I'll get the acronym the wrong way around a bit, but CE rating basically. So it's all like the boat is going to float fine. Let's now work on the performance of the propulsion system and the batteries so that they're all accredited. And we're thinking that we want to bring all of the electric boat builders together as a sort of a collaborative act to then therefore get regulated or have some regulations put on of safety, some performance,
common standards.
Common standards, common sense stuff. So that's something else of sort of getting our own rule books signed up. And then it's just I guess cash flow is king with a startup, and making sure that we can go through the ups and downs of bringing all of this to life, because we've been extremely lean by most standards. Getting this first boat to where we are after 2 years is best part of £500,000 to where we are now. That compared to other boat builders, I believe that's like literally a drop in the ocean compared to what a lot of other people are doing.
It's still a lot of money.
It's still
Do
a
you know
lot
what
of
I mean?
money. So yeah, don't get me
it's
wrong.
still a lot.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's still a lot that's got into it. Um, but yeah, compared to the R&D budgets of larger companies, that's nothing. So where we've got to with the boat, how it looks, yes, there's been a couple of delays that we were not passionate about or excited about, but yeah, to achieve what we've done, I think it's we should definitely pat ourselves on the back a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's sort of right now we've got, we're launching. We got to the Southampton Boat Show. We're going to be doing editorials and sea trials up in the coming months.
Awesome.
And then taking orders. Scaling up is the next big thing of going right.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does sort of the short-term plan? So it's scaling up, is it?
Yes, yeah. So there's two sides of it. There's working on the sort of day-to-day sales, working with dealer networks and private individuals, processing them and putting orders in and getting aluminium bought and all that sort of stuff. And then there's the other side, which is the sort of scaling up in R&D. Luckily, the Innovate UK have got a variety of grants and or loans that are being put up for grabs in a competition form where you sort of submit all of your information and what you're trying to do. And there is funding out there. And luckily there are, although there are a couple of grants that should be a slam dunk for us, they're not quite where we're actually on our trajectory of our business and the size that we are. But there are a couple of loans out there which is perfectly poised, and we're going for one of them now, whereby it takes so our technology readiness level is a 7 out of scale of 1 to 9, 9 being you're in production making these boats.
Yeah.
And basically getting us from a 7 to a 9, having a loan to inject some cash to sort out a new production technique, which I alluded to a little bit earlier with the welding machines. That really differentiates us and our ability to make boats very, very accurately and very quickly, which is, one of those triangles of quick, cheap, and good. We somehow managed to get all of those when we've developed this new production technique. Yeah, that's
it's just that injection of cash to take you to that next level.
To get us from a couple of boat builders with very good sort of accredited aluminium welding skills. That obviously takes time, and it's although it's a fine art, it does take a lot of time, and we need to be able to sell or have a production line where we're making a lot of boats quickly for it all to start making a lot of sense and to start addressing the international market. So that's what we're sort of empowering ourselves to achieve. And then off we go. Then the hulls are being looked after. We've got our sort of supply chain for our batteries and our motors and all that sort of nicely squared away. So as we turn on the production pipeline, then we're going to go from a prototype, quirky R&D innovation idea company to an actual boat building production company.
What sort of volume are we talking about? How many boats in an ideal world? Everything goes to plan. You tick all the boxes. How many boats are we likely to see produced?
So in 2024, we'll be making 12. So the next year we're aiming between 3 and 5. So then it's basically doubling until we get to probably a peak around 50 a year. Wow. That's our sort of ultimate goal. There will be new product and new models or series in the Pixii range, but one of the other things that we're doing is, so Pixii is our leisure boat brand, casting back to the originator of the name Hippolyte Pixii. We're making Hippo commercial boats as well, which are going to be aluminium electric work boats. So they're going to be Hippo boats. and so we will be still making more boats, but under different brand names. So it's taking all of our electric drive technology and putting it into a rugged workboat. So it doesn't need to be as pretty. It needs to work. It's going to be bashed around. It's going to be
functional.
it's absolutely functional, and that really sort of leans into aluminium being the material of choice for that. And so we will be having other growth boat building sort of pieces of the puzzle, but it won't be just Pixii growing and growing and growing. It'll be Hippo will start taking up some of the capacity. The whole group will start working on that. So
you've got such an exciting few years planned.
Well, that's
you know
what
I mean. Makes all that hard work worth it.
Yeah, I think what we've sort of done is we've created or envisaged the future, and then gone, right, what does that look like? Right, then now let's go back into here. Let's create the steps or the molds or the facilities for us to be that. And then it's just
everything you're doing now is with scaling up in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've got our ability to make boats, rather than them taking 3 months or so, taking 6 days to make a hull accurately, perfectly, really well. That's the idea. Then we can just start pushing these out to the wider market, international as well. So it's fun. It's fun.
It sounds incredible. I'm really excited to see all of that sort of come to fruition and start to see it all sort of enter the market, really.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, time will tell.
Time will tell. Always does, doesn't it? Awesome. So, my favourite part of the podcast now.
Oh, right, yeah.
Nervous, Charlie.
Oh, right. I actually forgot about this bit.
Would you rather?
Oh, would you rather? Okay. Yeah, I forgot about this bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Don't be nervous.
Okay.
But here we go.
Right.
Would you rather have way more work than you could accomplish in one day and be really, really stressed out, or have hardly any work at all, really chilled but really bored?
Oh, that is an awful, brilliant question. Oh, damn.
I love the pain noises that I get from the would you rather round.
Yeah, I know. It's just so frustrating because I'd like, if one could follow the other, then I don't mind. But I know that's not the question. I would say the former. I'd have lots of work to do and stressed out and have be problem solving, figuring it out, getting it sorted. Yeah,
I'd be the same, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so.
I couldn't handle being bored.
Yeah, having nothing to do is different from relaxing. Nothing to do is different from relaxing. So, anyway.
100%. Okay, next one.
Okay.
Would you rather spend a week on the International Space Station?
Yeah.
Or a week in a hotel at the bottom of the ocean?
Ooh, how far down in the proper bottom of the ocean? Like, it's pretty dark.
Bottom of the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be the space station. Being able to, both experiences would be mind blowing. But yeah, I think floating around the Earth a few times, however many times it would be, I don't know. I think you go around the Earth about every 4 hours, so you'd be just getting so many miles in. I think those views would be worth it. I'll go for the space station.
Awesome. I think these are definitely going to be the weirdest questions you'll be asked today.
Well, I've got my 3-year-old. She can be pretty abstract.
Oh, actually, maybe not then.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. Would you go back to age 5 with everything you know now?
Okay.
Or know now everything your future self will learn?
Oh, I guess it's sort of similar theme. I don't know. I think would I want to do it all again? I think I'd be a 5-year-old. I think that could be quite good fun. Have some.
Do it all again with all those knowledge of what you'd learned along the way. I think it'd be pretty powerful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think that'd be fun. Cool. Wow, very quick.
Yeah. And the last question, which I ask everyone: what one quote inspires you every day, or that you strive to live by?
Okay, this is actually it goes back to my grandfather. He said, "If you want to change something, you can do it." But it's not quite as catchy. But that's something I've lived by. That sort of idea of like, just change it. If you're not happy with it, just change it. But
it's in your control, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think I sort of, after watching Star Trek with Jean-Luc Picard saying "make it so," that seemed to be a bit more quippy. So "make it so" has been
same vibe though, isn't it?
Yeah,
make it so. Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you look at the industry, you know, that is what you're doing. You know, you wanted to change it, so you just did.
Just trying to, yeah. I mean, you know, it's not as easy as that, but yeah, it's what we want to try and do.
It's not just you by yourself.
No.
Charlie Hall changing the whole industry.
No, absolutely not. No,
just contributing.
Yeah, just that's the other thing is, you know, as one person, what actual influence do you have of actually changing anything? Well, it's not really that much, but you try your little bit you can of what you can change, what you can do, and then make that happen. That's what you do. So it's definitely not.
If everyone did that.
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't that be cool? That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time, Charlie. I've loved hearing the story of Pixii and your plans for the future. And you know, I can't wait. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, well, same here. Same here. It's going to be good fun. All right, cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then it would be awesome if you could leave a rating or a review. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to us again. See you soon.